Join us for the Career and Technical Education event of the year. ACTE's Career Tech Vision happens this November 29th through December 2nd in Phoenix, Arizona, and is the largest annual conference in the nation for career and technical educators, business leaders, and industry professionals. Last year, the event attracted more than 6,000 attendees. At Vision, you will have the opportunity to forge meaningful professional connections with educators and industry leaders. You'll expand your professional development with hundreds of concurrent sessions, workshops, and tours. Ignite your inspiration while you learn from innovative keynote speakers and leaders on the Vision main stage. Explore the Career Tech Expo with hundreds of exhibits, workshops, and live demonstrations. Discover high-demand careers and curriculum for use in a CTE program from industry representatives at the Reimagined Career Pavilion. Celebrate the extraordinary contributions of career and technical educators at the ACTE Awards Gala. ACTE is pleased to offer both a full in-person event with a robust on-demand component for remote attendance. Be sure to register by August 31st to secure discounted early bird rates for this premier CTE conference. Register on careertechvision.com. Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Welcome into the Tech Ed Podcast. I am your host, Matt Kirkner. We talk all the time on our podcast about advancing technologies, things like electric vehicle technology, battery technology, advanced manufacturing, and semiconductors. Well, what happens when you are the person responsible for finding the talent, creating the talent, and engaging the talent for those types of technologies across your entire state? Today, we are going to find out because we have with us a fascinating guest, and she comes to us in the form of Kerry Ebersole Singh. She is the Chief Talent Solutions and Engagement Officer for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, commonly called the MEDC. And Kerry, it is such a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us on the Tech Ed Podcast.
Really excited to be here. And I love talking talent and I love talking Michigan. So let's do it.
Talent topic is a great topic. I love the state of Michigan. As you know, I've spent quite a bit of time over there. So many awesome things that are taking place in Michigan right now along the lines of talent, along the lines of economic development. And I know we're going to get into all of that. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do at the MEDC.
Excellent. Excellent. Wow. It's always these big questions that launch into a discussion. So first and foremost, Michigan Economic Development Corporation is really charged as the lead economic development entity for the state of Michigan. And we have a mission of developing the fastest growing, most equitable economy in the country. That's our goal. And we are marching toward that every day.
That's a fascinating mission. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And then I'd be interested in just kind of knowing day to day, how do you go about personally living out that mission with the MEDC?
Sure. I think I want to point out I think we've recently been recognized as part of the battery belt, the EV battery belt, right, and the top 3 states that has been landing those investments. I think that is definitely a signal to how we're working very diligently at, incorporating and growing those opportunities in the state of Michigan. And as you mentioned, Michigan's heritage is centered around the auto and mobility sector, and we want to continue that leadership. And I think day to day, what that means for me when I look at, again, I'm charged with talent development, working with employers, and really thinking through the segments of the population that can not only meet their workforce needs, but also training along the way. And I think one of the differentiators for us versus any other state is we truly are looking in the short and long term, meaning we're starting and talking to employers about engaging in community schools at the kindergarten in STEM building skills, K through 8, state, as well as those short term, with our hand in hand with our community colleges, whether that's curriculum development or again, recruitment strategies. So that's what day to day my life looks like. And I have an awesome team that helps me in every way.
I can imagine. And some really interesting things, especially as we talk about how we inspire that next generation of K-12 students toward careers in aspects of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. You talk about the battery belt. We had actually Manoj Patel from Ford on with us not too long ago, talking about just the incredible innovation that's happening in Michigan and across the country, but particularly in his plant in Southeast Michigan with regard to electric vehicle technology. I know we're going to dive into that a little bit more as well as we go on with our conversation here on the Tech Ed podcast. Another question that occurs to me, Kerry, is just understanding. I mean, you talk about all the relationships that you have with industrial employers, all the time that you're spending with the people that are hiring and seeking the kind of talent that you're looking to develop as we look to the future. Tell us a little bit about the current state of the Michigan workforce. And as you're out there talking to employers, how do they feel about the workforce and what are they most concerned about?
Yeah, it's tight. I think anywhere in the country, they'll say that. The labor market is definitely tight. Employers are feeling that and really meeting their hiring demands as well as retention strategies. But I think that is what is also timely and in terms of our work at MEDC on talent. We want to come alongside employers.
For sure.
Hear what their biggest barrier is, and then work through how we can best partner and open up things. And we've really found a few really exciting ways, whether that's broadening out marketing strategies, talking about what an EV career looks like. This isn't our fathers or grandfathers' facilities anymore or factories. It's a very, very high tech. And we want to communicate that to younger folks, understanding that, hey, you can have robotics and computers and software. This is the name of the game. And we're helping educate on that front and then connect to employers ultimately.
And you're exactly right. The world of manufacturing is changing, and it's changing in ways that 10, 15 years ago, we never would have imagined. And it's just such a different world than the world that we lived in, to your point, in our fathers or our grandfathers' world of manufacturing. So as you think about the state of manufacturing today, and you're working with all these different industries, which ones have the most acute need for skilled talent?
It's a really great question, which would probably spark debate because I think the answer is a number of our industry verticals, if you will, our strategic industries here in the state of Michigan are in need of hiring and of need talent. Now, with that said, we have launched a couple of key initiatives focused on two initiatives in particular. One is the auto or the EV and mobility industry. We call this effort under a talent action team. And then the second is on semiconductor. Again, these are very highly skilled technical needs that each of these sectors have in terms of their occupational hiring needs. So those have been two focuses that we have started with and want to build out from there. But it gets to those long and short-term solutions that, we've seen from these two industry sets as a need to fill those talent demands. And we have companies saying, if you can help us solve our talent issues, we're going to expand and grow here. Like this is, it's been written about the new battleground is talent and workforce, but employers want to see, can you deliver? And that's just what we're focused on.
Absolutely. In all my years of manufacturing, I like to look back and think that when we were looking at expansions, and I had a number of opportunities to expand manufacturing operations back in the old days, I guess, for lack of a better term, the first thing that we would think about is the proximity to customers and suppliers. That was always really important. The second thing was what economic incentives are available to us if we expand in a certain geographical area. And then the third thing was talent. And I will tell you that model has 100% flipped. And the first thing that anybody's looking for is good, solid manufacturing and advanced manufacturing talent when it comes to areas like EV and semiconductors, as you suggest, and really a testament to how far out in front of some of these technologies you are, because those are probably the two hottest manufacturing sectors as we think about manufacturing right now. So you're all over those things, and you're exactly right. The access to talent, the ability to produce talent is the number one issue and the number one factor that manufacturers think about, and employers of all types, I think about as they're looking at expanding in a certain area. The other thing that I think is really important, you talk about looking for the short term and looking to the future as well. If we turn the clock forward in manufacturing, the truth of the matter is that a lot of the folks working in manufacturing a couple decades from now are already in the manufacturing sectors. And in as much as we like to focus on K-12 and inspiring K-12 students and community and technical colleges and producing STEM talent out of our universities and doing research in our universities, all of those are really, really important. The other thing I think gets overlooked sometimes is the importance of taking the folks that are already working in manufacturing in a world that's changing like crazy with the advent of automation and Industry 4.0 and giving them the skills that they need to be successful in the future. Are you seeing a trend toward customized training and upskilling in manufacturing for the incumbent workforce as well?
Sure, absolutely. It's all the name of the game in terms of working with an employer. It's always part of the core formula, right? Looking at their existing workforce, understanding again how their evolution of their business is looking at. And for instance, in the auto industry, we're seeing examples of mechanical engineers that need to take a few additional courses or a set to become electrical engineers, or at least have a set of backgrounds so they can incorporate that into their job. And then the increase of software developers as well is another area that I think if you have talented folks within, that's kind of the skills that need to be translated. And then along the line, we've had two large efforts here in the state of Michigan to help incorporate upskilling as a part of meeting the EV and automakers transition to electrifying their business models, their assembly, up and down, essentially how they do business. So we've been, definitely on that path for a long time now in terms of working with companies to that end.
So, and we see exactly the same trends, and it's fascinating to watch as we think about again the technologies we're talking about: electric vehicles, semiconductors, manufacturers understanding that they've got to upskill that future workforce, and then thinking about how we do that and how we really wrap around those manufacturers a wide variety of options, and whether it's the mechanical engineer that you referenced that needs additional skills, whether we need more individuals responsible for software development. Another thing we hear quite often is data science and data analytics and the role that is playing in the world of manufacturing. Is I've moved over from the manufacturing world more into the education and public policy side. One of the things I've been fascinated by are the role of third-party credentials, and that role has really changed in the last 5 to 8 years. So let's think about that in the world of lifelong learning, in the world of upskilling, and the incumbent worker looking to gain those additional skills. What role are third-party credentials playing in the state of Michigan?
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to point out our CEO is a true believer in the lifelong learning model. And now the Gen Zs that are coming out of school now, their career path looks much different. And it very much is one of a lifelong learning path. And I think that we have to incorporate and evolve the education models to meet the individual and employer needs, right? But we really absolutely need to partnership with those third-party credential providers. And I will tell you one approach that we are doing. Again, while our existing partnerships are still mainly with our community colleges, higher ed, and that PK-12 system, we are driven by the employers. And as you know, there are a number of employers that are signing on with third-party credential pieces, but we just want to align curriculum, outcome of skills to meet their needs, and we will follow along and pursue those partnerships with those third-party providers.
But you're right. I mean, the world of training and upskilling is changing, and whether it's a Gen X or a millennial or even a Gen Z, their world is going to be a lot different than the one that I grew up in. And I have friends that, created a skill set right out of high school and went to work in the workforce and were able to have a really phenomenal career working in a job that really didn't change much over the years as they went to work and did similar work day in and day out, and training and upskilling maybe wasn't as important in that area. In this new era, with all of the advent of all these different technologies and advancements, not just in manufacturing, but across the economy, lifelong learning is absolutely absolutely important. And so you and I couldn't agree more. And the role of third-party credentials and making sure that they're stackable and they lead to something and that they have career relevance and they can provide opportunities and pathways for people already in the workforce to gain skills, to earn more money, to work more interesting jobs. I'm all about that. So you and I are 100% Kerry aligned on that entire topic. Another thing that I think we're also aligned on is the vast importance of STEM learning and of skilled trades learning as well, right? I mean, both of these are really, really important. So I want you to talk a bit about all your experience working with K-12, working with community college, engaging with educators. What's going on in the state of Michigan with regard to STEM learning and skilled trades training and learning? And why do you think you're different and maybe better than some of the things going on in other parts of the country?
Yes, first and foremost, advanced manufacturing is in our DNA. Creating the systems and the training modules to deliver the talent for that is, again, this is what we do here in Michigan. I will say, across the board, we have phenomenal partners in higher ed. They are willing to customize. They are willing to think creatively about how we source equipment and ensuring that, employers are part of the process. So I think it's a really valuable place to be in terms of really delivering something that is customized. Again, you're not going to find many states that has the higher ed footprint that we have, where you talk about 3 R1s in the state of Michigan. I'm a Michigan State grad, University of Michigan, I'll mention them too, they're great.
Right.
As well as Wayne State University. Right. And just down the road for me, Lansing Community College is like the number 2 technical college in the entire country. And, that is just whether it's R&D, whether it's, preparing someone to work on the line, robotics, mechatronics, we are where you want to be. And this is what we do.
Absolutely. And I know certainly all of those institutions, believe it or not, I've spent time at the University of Michigan, at Michigan State, and Wayne State. I'll throw in Michigan Tech as well, not an R1, but certainly doing some great things up there in the UP, the Upper Peninsula of the state of Michigan, and so many great, higher educators doing important research and partnering with manufacturers, partnering with individuals in the, not just on the manufacturing side, but really across the world and across the landscape of innovation and advancement there in Michigan. So really, really important things going on in your universities, really important things going on in STEM learning. And you reference the importance of these employer relationships and of manufacturers and employers of all kinds getting involved with education. And I can tell you, I lived in a world where I think a lot of times, especially in the manufacturing sector, and I was guilty of the same thing. So I get to kind of criticize others with impunity. We would kind of sit in an office or a conference room and complain about sometimes maybe not having the workforce that we needed, not being able to see whether it was our local school district or a technical or community college produce the people that could fill the jobs that we have, not realizing that we were an important part of the problem as well, and making sure that we were engaging with those folks and investing our time and our treasure, building relationships, serving on advisory boards. All of those things were really, really important. And it wasn't just our role to sit and point the finger, but we had to be involved in advancing the world of technical education. So talk a little bit about how that is going in Michigan and how industrial employers can better partner with K-12 educators in particular in terms of building the next generation of the workforce.
Yeah, I love this piece of the conversation because I used this at a roundtable up during the Mackinac Policy Conference that we hear from businesses, we're not getting what we need from higher ed. They're not delivering for us. And then you hear from higher ed, oh, employers, they're here today, gone tomorrow. We can't give them what they want because, they don't stay at the table. And I would say, and I know you incorporated some K-12 pieces in there as well, that part of what the model of our deployment through these talent action teams is we're convening strategic employers. We get alignment on priority and numbers in terms of needs. And then we bring higher ed to the table through an RFI process. And this, I should not only higher ed, we also have, K-12 targeted by geographies in terms of needs through our county intermediate school districts and those superintendents to talk through how can we customize and build both that longer term solution and then those short term solutions we were talking about earlier. And what this model does, again, okay, employers, last year we met every other month. This year we're to quarterly, but we are helping to be a convener, but also a translator and someone that's continuing to work to meet the needs that we have agreed to around these tables. So we are trying to ease the burden between the two, make it more efficient for people to tag into and still get their needs met.
So tell us a little more about this RFI process. So the employers are coming around the table, they're giving you feedback. What kind of questions are you asking them, and what are you hearing in terms of their responses?
The employers, we have essentially a template to collect data in terms of what are they hiring for. So these aren't labor forecasts for an industry. This is, okay, who and what are you hiring next year and over the next 5 years? And then we aggregate needs amongst 15 employers in the same sector and prioritize. And then we put out generally to higher ed what the needs are. And then they respond to the RFI. And then we review in terms of what they are offering or what they can offer to meet those needs. And guess what? Higher ed's willing to put some skin in the game. They are bringing money to the table outside of our state dollars as well to help meet and deliver this talent need for employers. So it's pretty cool. Again, we're early in our evolution. Like I would foresee down the line that this is a completely cooperative model between employers, state government, and education.
Pretty cool indeed. And anytime that we get those individuals at the same table or communicating on the same platform, we can certainly advance the ability of education to be responsive to industry and industry to be responsive to, some of the challenges of education as well. And so we've seen tremendous advancements when you open up those lines of communication and make sure that both the industrial and the education sides of the equation are communicating and understanding each other. Really, really important work is taking place in that regard. And so we talked a little bit about some of the things that industrial employers can do to build great relationships with their community colleges. I mentioned the importance of serving on advisory boards, of visiting with students, of internships, of externships, of plant tours, all these different ways that we can engage. You spend a lot of time with community colleges, and you've mentioned Lansing in particular, but I know there's a huge number of community colleges across the state of Michigan. Whether you're talking to those community colleges or maybe even in a more broad sense across the scope of technical and community colleges here in the United States, what can they do to make sure that they're responding to the needs of industrial employers?
My advice to industrial partners out there is, one, meet with the presidents of those community colleges, meet with the deans, make sure you're clearly articulating what your needs are. Also work with your local economic development organization and your state, because I will tell you, we, by just our convening with some of our educational partners, I know Michigan State University has set up 2 new articulation agreements, one with Lansing Community College on some semiconductor credentials, as well as Delta College up in we call it the I-75 corridor there, up by Hemlock Semiconductor and SK Siltron. Delta College has some phenomenal programs. Anyway, I say this just by convening, having the conversation, knowing what the need is, they're stepping up and, putting the good plan together.
And that ability to be flexible, as you suggest, being able to turn around a boot camp in a matter of weeks. Yes. I can tell you in my experience, that's exactly what industrial employers are asking for. And again, as somebody who spent most of my career in industry, you're running a manufacturing plant, you're running a semiconductor plant, you're pushing out batteries for electric vehicles. That is your focus day in and day out, and that is your workforce focus. And then you recognize that, look, that industrial training, upskilling my incumbent workforce, it's what we call important, not urgent. My company isn't going to die today if I don't do it, but it might die in 10 years or 5 years if I don't. And so, really thinking through it that way, but also recognizing that if producing quality product is job one in manufacturing, then we have to have the most flexible model we possibly can in terms of delivering that learning to employees, and whether that's delivering it in bite-sized pieces and whether it's doing it a couple hours a week over the course of several months or what have you. All of those ways of being flexible and responsive, so very important. And so I really, really appreciate that last answer to the question, because I think you're exactly right. That flexibility and ability to be reactive and to almost be ahead of the needs of industrial employers really, really important. Another thing that a lot of states are trying to get ahead of is what we call the brain drain, or the idea that we are creating talent in our own state, and that talent may be leaving because they see a better opportunity, or at least they perceive a better opportunity elsewhere in the country. And of course, when we do that, all these investments that we're making, whether it's in our K-12 programs, in our universities, in our technical and community colleges, and so on, I don't want to say it's for naught, because there's always value in educating students, but we don't necessarily get to derive in our own state the benefit and the value of all that investment that we made. So talk a little bit about that. What should states be doing, and what is Michigan doing in particular as you're creating this amazing engineering talent? How do we make sure we're keeping those engineers at home rather than losing them to other economic areas?
Yeah, great. We got a plan for that. So what we're deploying just this year is what we call the Michigander Scholarship for an EV Scholars cohort. And those are focused on those two positions we talked about earlier, electrical engineers and software developers. And while we're just piloting this year with 3 schools, Michigan Tech, Michigan State, and University of Michigan, this allows folks, our strategic employers that make a job offer in one of those 2 occupations, the student accepts, they qualify for that $2,000 tuition or scholarship, that can be applied to their tuition. So that's one retention strategy that we just launched this year. We're testing. Students are excited about it. Faculty is excited about it on campus. And then the employers have been excited, so much so that our semiconductor employers in the state have been saying, we want that too. Don't just do that for the EV industry. So we look forward to hopefully launching that scholarship later this year. I think the other thing that, listen, we got to articulate the value proposition of the state of Michigan. And that means we're surrounded by fresh water. We have beaches. We have the most boat licenses. We created snowboarding. There's trails, and we have amazing cities, Grand Rapids, Detroit. We have suburban areas and college towns, like I live here in East Lansing. We have it all. And guess what? With a good cost of living, that you could still explore the world. So why would you go anywhere else? And so that's twofold: articulating and educating the state that they are in. And 2, we're adding like a little financial sweetener if they stay for a job here. And so those are a couple of things that, we're attempting to do to help retain more of those graduates in the state of Michigan. And then we soon will be getting, I think, a bit more aggressive in our attraction strategy, or at least talking to our expats, our Michigan expats, and say, hey, do you miss your family? You want to come back? Are you done paying $3,500 in the Bay Area for your rent? You want a property and a little bit more room, with money to be able to explore the world. So, that's what we're going to get a little bit more aggressive on.
Absolutely. As somebody who has seen the world and has made my entire life in the Midwest, I can attest to a lot of the things that you just talked about. We love the fresh coast. We love the Great Lakes. There's so much beautiful nature here. And I was just commenting as we were warming up, just the diversity in your state in a lot of ways. But one particular way is that, if you want to live in a city, you've got great cities like Lansing, like Grand Haven, like Detroit, of course, and what a resurgence is going on there. I just spent a week in Detroit earlier this year. So all kinds of great things that are going on in the cities. But I think a lot of times people may, if they have the paradigm of Michigan being all about the automotive industry and manufacturing plants, and there's a ton of that, and it's awesome. There's a lot of other aspects of your state, both in lower and upper Michigan, that you can pretty much have any lifestyle you want. If you like to hunt and fish, that's there. If you want to live in a city, that's there. You have all that going for you. And I would say really the same thing here in my state, my home state of Wisconsin. So lots of reasons for people to stay in the Midwest, or if they've located elsewhere, to come back home, to be closer to family. There's great jobs. There's great opportunities here. So we've had just a phenomenal conversation today with Kerry Ebersole Singh of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And we've got one more final question for you, Kerry. It's one we love to ask. It's my favorite question that we ask our guests here on the Tech Ed podcast. And I think every one of us, myself included, if we had that opportunity to go back and talk to our 15-year-old self, would have a little piece of sage advice for that individual. And I'm curious what yours would be to yourself. What would today's Kerry Ebersole Singh say to the 15-year-old version of yourself?
Be brave.
Awesome. That is beautiful. That is a succinct, perfect answer. be brave. And there's no doubt that you've been brave. You think about all the initiatives that you're in, the team of people that you have the opportunity to work with, going to Governor Whitmer and saying, where can I help? What do you need? Where can I add value? Having the guts to ask that question and then to follow through on what the direction that she and her staff and in your entire state set you on, Kerry. So Kerry Ebersole Singh, it's been wonderful to have you with us on the Tech Ed Podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time and really appreciate your comments and insights today.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you liked this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.